Rachel, we ready? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Celebration Education Task Force meeting number 2. It is now 6:03 p.m. on Monday, November 30th. I'm Tom Sonneborg. I'll call this meeting to order. Let's have to take attendance, but let's just go around and Brian
Copley.
Thank you.
Dan Heskett. Todd Rimmer.
Tom Sonneborg.
Rebecca Newman.
Tom Tucson. Jeff McNeil.
Vanessa Winter.
Steve Warner.
Thank you. We also have a few folks that are invited guests, members of the public in CROA, and some that are non-voting liaisons to us, and we'll get into that more and more here. You all have voting members. You have an agenda in front of you, I hope, or you picked one up. Just like to review that quickly and make sure these are the things we want to cover tonight.
I saw this on the email.
Sorry if I've spread out a little bit here, Rebecca. Could you just give that a quick look and let me know if there's any need to adjust anything? Any suggestions? Objections?
Does this include like other proposals that have already been made?
I want to get into that under the key objectives review alternatives.
Perfect. That's fine, thank you.
And hopefully that'll be not just review the alternatives that we've already talked about, but brainstorm everything we can think
Okay,
of.
perfect.
And keep doing that until we come up with the
Right.
one. So are we all good with this agenda? Okay. Just let's consider that approved. So one thing I'd like to cover up front is just an item on the agenda called decorum. The meeting number 1 last week at this time, I wouldn't call it loose, but it was pretty much a free-for-all, which was okay. I thought it was necessary for those who needed to vent to vent. Tonight, I don't want to go the other way and make it really heavy-handed, but out of respect for everybody in the room, let's just have, let's go overboard a little bit on common courtesy, on respect for each other, on respect for those who are watching on TV. If you've got something to say, raise your hand, I'll recognize you, or keep the conversation going and come back to you. And if you want to talk from the audience, please go to the microphone at the podium. Thank you. Next item I called member reports. Couldn't figure out what else to call it other than we all left the meeting last week with some to-dos and some homework assignments. We've been trading emails amongst each other, but I haven't covered everything I wanted to report on, and I know that you all had some other things. So maybe just one at a time, if you had an assignment or something you want to cover, just as an update before we get into the rest of it, let's just go around, if that's all right. Brian, did you have anything that you wanted to report back?
No.
Ken, I notice you don't have a mic, so if you do, let's just swing it. Dan?
I have nothing to report, Tom.
Okay. Todd, any?
So I think the only thing that we talked about was the reference to a recreation agreement that I think you had made, Tom.
Yeah.
We've done some research. We have not completed that research.
Okay.
But what we found was a condition in the original DO. That's what I was trying to get online here to find. So I'll paraphrase. Basically, there was a condition in the original development order that addressed recreation space. It mentioned schools, but it didn't go as far as what you were saying. It also gave the ability for the developer to utilize the comprehensive plan at the time as a go-by in lieu of that standard. And there was an amendment, the first amendment to the DO in '97.
Okay.
Removed that condition and adopted the Osceola comp plan at the time. So we are trying to find the 1991 Osceola Count Plan
Okay.
and to make sure that we are in compliance. We feel that we have always reported that we were, and we've always been in compliance with what we understood the master plan to be. But
Okay.
we just want to verify that that is in fact the case and that there is nothing else out there that.
Okay.
But we're still looking. I know you're looking. So.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing
Sure.
that research. Maybe if we're reporting that we're in compliance, given the school fields that we have, will we be out of compliance?
Well, and that's
Cover
what I want
Okay.
to. That's the research that we want to do.
Okay.
So I want to come back with a
Good.
report that shows what the comp plan says, what the history of the DO conditions were, and how the development today is in compliance and how it could be in compliance with any changes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you for that. So I had a few homework assignments. Some I've reported back to you all, but let me go through them one by one. A lot of them were just organizational, how we set up the non-voting liaison members. My first assignment was to contact the CCDD, which I did. I called John Gebhardt, asked him his thoughts about assigning, or not assigning, but asking for volunteers from the CCDD membership. We had a good chat. I told him that Bill came last time. Floyd was interested. You guys are both here tonight. Now, you can't talk to each other. I see you left a space in between you, which is good.
It's a sunshine seat.
But as long as we don't violate the sunshine law, and you guys are well-versed in that, I think that we would all like your participation so that when the time comes that we have to, or that we will recommend a solution here, again, we don't have to be unanimous, but that the CDD, that all 5 members of the CDD board are well-versed, up to speed, sensitized to all the issues, and that you can join us in our recommendation, I hope. So if we need to rotate, terrific. If you guys can both hear and maybe sit on opposite sides of the room or something, that's fine too. But as far as I'm concerned, it's more the merrier. Sir?
It would just be if there's any issues that involve CDD. So if you would come up talking about, for instance, bonding, I'll head for the exit and solve that.
Okay. Okay, we won't, or we'll give you a heads up first. I also had a couple of conversations with school board members. First, the board, or the task force, asked me to reach out to Clarence Thacker, the current chairman of the school board. I did that late last week. He was already gone on the holiday vacation by that point. I did drop him an email, and we agreed to talk today, which we did. But in the interim, I also had a couple of conversations with Jay Wheeler. Good conversations. Jay and I do know each other pretty well and are able to speak frankly with each other. He could not make it tonight. He has volunteered to join us as our liaison person next week on the 7th. He will be a few minutes late, but he'll be here. He would like to attend as many of our meetings as he can, but I explained to him that the task force did ask me to ask Clarence about a rotation concept. The same concept I talked to John Gebhardt about for the CCDD is that we'd like all of the 5 members to be supportive and up to speed. Jay does represent our district. We need him. And we need him to carry an eventual proposal back to the school board. But the more support we can get from the other 4, the better off we'll be. Jay understands that. Clarence, I did talk to this morning. He understands that, and he would like to join, and he thinks the other 3 would like to also. So I'll keep talking to them. We'll work this out. But for now, Jay will be here next week, Clarence the week after, and we'll see what happens after that. Now, one alternative that Jay Wheeler brought up was if at the end of the meeting today, we can schedule our meetings far enough out, get them that schedule, then they could actually publish the meetings, and so could the CDD, if you chose to do it this way, so that not to set aside the sunshine law, but to comply with the sunshine law, and then you could, as long as it's published and it makes for a much more open meeting, which I don't have a problem with. Again, the more the merrier. But if there's no, is there any objection to that or any hesitation in doing that?
I don't think so.
Anybody?
I think it's important too for the community to know when these dates are.
Yeah.
So they can plan to attend if possible. And again, we're trying to keep it as open as possible.
Good. That's how I feel about it. So let's do that at the end.
Tom, you have a question in the back?
Just because it's published, it probably wouldn't make a difference sunshine laws.
No one can hear you.
Yeah, well, I'll just repeat that
Okay.
question, or point from Lee Moore, is it wouldn't be us publishing it, it'd be us getting the school district and the CDD,
Right.
our calendar of meetings, so they can do the publishing that they need
Even if
to.
they published it, it has to be their it has to be a meeting. So they can publish it, but it still wouldn't be their meeting.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and send them our schedule and let them do what they need to do. But it would still be our meeting. So maybe that doesn't work. Good point, Lee. What else? I've been on the phone a lot this week, guys. I had a great conversation with John Bushy this morning, who has joined us. Is at the end of the table, back to the camera, unfortunately, but John is a very highly respected member of our community, former principal of the school, and has agreed to sit in and help. And we don't know what that means exactly yet, but if you see an opportunity and can advise us, give us some counsel, John, we appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome. Yep.
So we'll see where that goes. I think that's what I wanted to report. Vanessa, you sent in some good stuff. Maybe you, when it comes around to you, you can help us with the numbers. Rebecca, you sent a very interesting summary of educational things to consider. So maybe please do that, or give everybody a summary of that.
Well, I spent some time looking through recent research on grade configuration and factors that impact middle grades education across the country. And I read a lot about the benefits of K-8 schools, and the benefits seem to be supported particularly in Florida by a big research study that came out in 2011, 2012. But many of those benefits seem to have been provided by the fact that there were fewer transitions in a K-8 and then 9 to 12 education. So they emphasized the benefits of a neighborhood school, they emphasized the benefits of transitioning a fewer number of times between schools, and in particular grouping 6th and 7th grade students with younger students. That's what I came across in the research. But I will say that many districts across the United States are moving towards a grade 7 to 12 model in their high school. And we're seeing that really happened in many areas from 2011, 2012 onwards. And what I would say is, and this seems to be generally accepted in the research, is that there is no definitive answer on the most effective grade configuration. Each community and school district considers different factors when making grade span decisions, and no one grade configuration is right for everyone. So to say that K-8 is our only option, is the only thing that can work here, I think may not be accurate. There may be some other possibilities. I also was passed a document, or a photocopy of a document, which was the 1999 agreement between the Celebration Company and the school board on temporary and portable classrooms. And I noticed the wording in that document was something along the lines of, and I have it in front of me here, it is also the intent of all parties that following the completion of the high school, the Celebration School shall be converted to house only grades kindergarten through 7th grade, and the high school shall house grades 8 through 12. Notwithstanding the foregoing, after seeking community input, the school board may elect to teach 8th grade students at the Celebration School if the Celebration School has sufficient capacity to accommodate all kindergarten through 8th grade students. So that obviously was an element that was there in the original planning in 1999, but it was just tucked away in a little clause under school portables. So I thought that was very interesting. And I also reached out to Rose Polizzi, who is very respected middle school guidance counselor at the Celebration School, knows a lot about the developmental needs of those students, and she has agreed to come and be with us in our meetings and serve as liaison. She's just not able to be here tonight, so that's just about it.
So the only task that I had was I did post an update of the last task force meeting. I did work with Steve in Town Hall to make sure the videos are posted. There are some issues on the front porch, but Town Hall did agree to go ahead and post the links so we can go ahead and see not just the task force meeting, but the previous workshop meetings and pro board meetings, because it was hard to go ahead and find those. I just spoke with Steve before this meeting too, that we'd like to have the minutes posted fairly quickly, or at least a link to them, so we can again communicate out. I still have to get together with Cookie to get all the folks on the petition to get that word out for the minutes. So I'll do that right after this meeting. So I think that's important. No one knew where to find anything, so if we can keep that thread going and post that, I think that'd be important.
It was interesting that the traffic diminished or went down after you posted. I think it is interesting that when there's not a lot of information coming out,
right,
people are curious and there's a lot of chatter.
Right.
When you're transparent, they don't have a lot of questions, which is a good thing.
Right, and if they do, they can hopefully ask it, and we can do our best to go ahead and
Yeah,
answer.
so thanks for doing that, Tom.
No problem. I'll stay on top of that.
Could I just?
Sure.
I had a text from someone that I received far too late, actually, just recently, saying, who is coming to tonight's meeting and meeting with the task force? And I think there was some interest on part of members of the town to find out which particular representatives from which organizations might be at each meeting.
Right, and so that's interesting, because we technically, let's say 2 days ago, we could have put that Jay Wheeler was going to be here. But we just found out at this meeting that he wasn't. So it's a little dynamic.
Sure.
We can say what is planned, and maybe we can do that tonight as we go forward and update it.
Let's clarify that now, if we can. So from the CCDD, it'll be Bill going forward unless we hear differently? Is that how you guys have worked it out?
We haven't really worked it out. We
Okay.
won't have another meeting until the 7th.
Okay, so how about we say Bill for next time, it'll be Bill. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Until it's
Okay.
official.
And also on the 7th, Jay Wheeler will be here from the school district. Rose, will she be here?
Yes, she
Okay.
did say she would be willing to come. I'll check the date with her, but
Okay.
yeah, I hope so.
Sophia Graves. Debbie, do you know if she'll be here next time?
Sorry?
Do you know if Sophia Graves will be here representing the student body next Monday? Okay, let's assume that. John will decide if we're worthy of coming back. I think that's everybody. Okay,
I'm good.
okay. Jeff?
The only thing I was going to add was it's nothing for assignments, but like Rebecca, I've done lots of background research, and there is so much conflicting information on class configuration, transitions, age, like even the difference between grade 7 and 8, in terms of student maturity and how they bond and
Right.
make the transition, and all those sorts of things. One of the things I keep coming across, I look for differentiators that are applicable here, is around class size, because it makes a big difference. In fact, I got one study that I didn't get a chance to share with everyone. I just pulled it off today. There's a Tax Watch series done from the Educational Performance and Accountability Group for 2014, and it basically says that even more important than class size is school size in terms of attachment, involvement in extracurriculars, all those sorts of things. So if we really care about educational quality as our one of our primary determinants, it's something we should really look at and consider. And beyond that, I'm not an educator, it's a sea of conflicting information. So not helpful, but that's what I found.
There was actually the task force, specifically Tom, had asked me just to kind of do a recap on the information that, and kind of when things came public. I'd be happy to go ahead and Tom can go ahead and post it however you want to do it.
Okay.
But I'll give just a quick synopsis of it. Basically, because of my activeness at the K-8, I was involved in several different things, including a task force in 2010, which was when the kids were redistricted from 192 over into the K-8 school. That was pretty much the very first time we knew that, or we were told that nothing was going to happen, that we were totally built out, and we would be not seeing any more expansion, because at the time we were about 80% capacity, and West Side K-8 was about 118 and projected to be 124, and they needed the relief. We had the capacity, and even with taking the kids that rezoned, I think it was up to 250 kids. But even then, we were still not going to be at 100% capacity. So we were very easily able to absorb those students. And as a result, that's when 34747 CARES came about. I believe Osceola Connected. There's several different things that have been pulled together as a result of having those kids. And it was all because back in 2010, beginning of 2011, I found numerous publicly noted meetings in which an expansion or potential expansion was discussed. There were 5 different ones that I was able to identify. The first one was actually back in 2013, the beginning of the year, spring of 2013. Celebration K-8 School Advisory Council had Rhonda Blake over, and that was as a result of all of the construction that was happening over on the boulevard, and we realized that we were having some new construction and we didn't know what to do with the kids. So we had Rhonda Blake come over to the K-8 and just go through all of the numbers that we could expect, and at what point in time would we reach our 100% capacity and possibly being overcrowded. As a result of that, that's why we had the expansion, because of course it's about an 18-month turnaround from when you actually figure out something's coming to when you can actually build a school or redistrict or whatever you need to do. It's about an 18-month turnaround no matter what. As a result, we just had the expansion at the K-8 to accommodate up to the 1,500, which again would account for, which will hold all of the kids that were on the Celebration Boulevard, but obviously not for Island Village. It was at that time that that the PTA also met with the County Commission, and that's when all of those new PUDs and everything all surfaced, and that's when we found out that Island Village was going to be coming eventually, but no time frame had happened at that point in time, or at that point. And then the first referenced public meeting I was able to find where Island Village was referenced was August 19th, 2014 at the CCDD meeting, when Crescent came in discussing the possibility of funding a future bond for infrastructure of the Island Village. And at that point in time, the CDD had specifically mentioned their concerns about having overcrowding with new kids coming in, and also having the downtown, having concerns with infrastructure within the downtown and being able to house them. There was a CROA special meeting December 4th, 2014, when Crescent Development came to discuss the possibility. And at that point in time, there was it was a banter of different concerns about the expansion, things to consider. Overwhelming was we really want to keep our K-8 model. We like that. Was also a concern about the infrastructure and can we handle the influx within the downtown area. And that same board meeting, there was also a charter school that had come in and asked to purchase the Civic Corridor portion to build a charter school, and at that point in time it was turned down unanimously. And then there was a CCDD meeting December the 9th, 2014, where Crescent came. And then again, the expansion again was discussed. I know when we were campaigning this past March, I know I had discussed it numerous times in my campaigns, and I'm sure there were others. I know there were others during our forums that had addressed the concerns also. And then, of course, the next public meeting was Tuesday, November the 10th, the CCDD meeting, when the plans for the expansion came up. Numbers. Right now, we have current capacity for the K-8 and the high school combined is about 3,900 student stations. Right now, the high school has no more than 720 students that are kids from Celebration. It's about 30%. It's actually a little less than 30%. And then Island Village projections is total K to 12 projections is 648. And these are numbers provided by the school district.
K through 8, you said?
Excuse me, K through 12, I apologize. K through 12, 648 students. High school is 214, middle school 145, and K-5 289.
Can you give those numbers again? 240 in high school?
High school is 214.
214?
And that's in the email I sent you to.
Okay, so
It's all,
it's in there. All right,
it's all in
perfect.
there. And then the Celebration resident total, even at complete build out, which would be considered the 8,065.
You were repeating those numbers and you stopped. Can you go?
I apologize, sorry, yes, I was giving it to you. K-5, 289. Middle school, 145. High school, 214. And those are projections from the school district. So there's different, it depends on who you talk to as to how the numbers are, but that's the numbers that were given from Rhonda Blake to us. And so at the total projection for Celebration at a 0.25 student per build out or per resident at 8,065. A complete build out, they're saying that estimation would be about 2,583 students. However, it could be more. Just it depends on how that breaks down. Sure. But 0.25% of the 865 is the 2,583. So obviously we have plenty of space between the two K-8 and the high school to be able to accommodate it. It depends again on how the breakdown based upon the 8th grade, if that was the model or how you're going to break them out. At complete build out, it is estimated about 66% would be Celebration resident, because we have to have that 80-20, and we still would be within that 80-20 based on the numbers, again, that I have from the 0.25 and then also from the school.
The 0.25, from what Rhonda told us, the 0.25 is just the K-8 generation, not the K-12.
Okay.
So it's closer to 0.35.
So what would it be for?
I think it's closer to 0.35.
0.35
for the total K-8, K-12 generation.
For K-12?
For K-8,
Okay.
0.25. That's how they're getting to the 1,000 additional students.
Okay.
But if you got, I mean, if
But
Rhonda
if
gave
you're
you...
talking about go ahead.
0.35 times 8,065.
Okay, so 8,065 times 0.35, it's still 28.
Yeah, it still
28.5.
fits.
It's still, yeah, I was going to say, it still
right,
fits the
yeah.
80-20.
And it's
Thank you.
closer to, it's actually closer to 80-20.
Yeah, thank you for
Sure.
clarifying that.
And then you
But, I mean-
plus that up to the 80-20.
Yeah, I would, again, just confirm that with Rhonda because, to make sure that those numbers are right. Because-
Is it 0.25 for the K through 8 and then 0.35 for the
No,
high
it's
school?
No, total.
0.35 total.
Everything, okay.
So 0.1 for high
Just
school,
for Celebration.
just for celebration.
So
So-
that's based on complete build-out, that's greater than Island Village, that's the next phase.
That's the
whatever
next,
happens
yeah,
beyond
that's.
That's everything.
maximum.
Correct, that's
So
everything.
not what we're currently facing, right?
Correct.
Right.
But that's just knowing that at least if complete projections out, based on the numbers, even with the 0.35, it's close, but it still fits within the 80-20. Is that correct, Henry?
Well, the 0.35 is just Celebration. so you would have to plus that up.
Yeah, so when you plus it up, it's 3528. When you plus it up to the additional 20%.
Okay. But
So it still fits.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Whiteboard?
Leah Carius, 1049 Nash Drive. Just explain, okay, the .25 is the number the school board traditionally uses when projecting students. You're saying the .35 is what?
Our understanding, and again,
Yeah.
I want to have the school district confirm this, but what we've been told is the .25 is the generation rate per home for K through 8. And
Okay.
.35 is K through 12
And that's specific to
for
celebration?
celebration.
Okay.
Yes. So,
Specific to celebration.
right.
Okay.
But again, we need to confirm that, but that's been
That's
the-
from
that's from
y'all's traditional
Rhonda.
numbers
That's
or
Rhonda. It's from-
That's from Rhonda?
That's our understanding. That's the last numbers that we were provided from the school district.
Okay.
So we
Thank you.
need to confirm that, but
Subject to confirmation.
Yep.
Can you conclude in summary that at full build-out, including Island Village,
And 192 I-4, that whole section on the other side of I-4.
Okay.
To the total development, the total
8,065
8,065 that has been approved since '94 should fit within those two schools at 80/20.
okay, that's a mouthful. That's important
Yep.
for everybody to understand.
Is that the infamous lost
Does that
F
sound
and G that's on the other side? What is it? That 8,065 total homes, that includes Island Village and something else that you mentioned?
Potential.
Potentially, we're not, so when Celebration was originally approved, it was approved for a multitude of different things, one of them being 8,065 residential units, and that hasn't changed over the years. And so what we've asked is that the school district plan for the ultimate build-out so that we know for certain where the student seats will be, rather than have to go through this every time a development comes online.
Okay.
Sorry, one last question. And when Island Village is built out, where will the actual number be?
With Island Village, the development is roughly at 7,100 units sold. Don't know that that's there's some difference in how many people are paying CROA, but that is, based on our numbers, we will roughly be at 7,100 total units. There's roughly 900 units left after Island Village is done.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that brings us up to date.
It looked like Mr. Bushy wanted to say something about the capacity. Is it?
Could you move the microphone?
The numbers that you were using about whatever per household,
0.25.
am I correct in hearing you say that that was for celebration? Okay, well then that means that School District 11 in Colorado Springs, Colorado was very much like Celebration, because those are traditional numbers that are used by districts across the United States to determine when new construction is occurring, what they can roughly figure the impact of the schools are going to be. I just point that out, that it is pretty much a general rule of thumb in programs or in districts across the United States, not Celebration specific.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John. So that brings us up to date. The community has vented. We've done our homework assignments for the week. Now, what do we do? How can we be most productive as a task force? And I've been thinking about how best to approach this. And I think we should proceed not slowly, but methodically. Because of all of the angst in the community, I want to make sure that when we get to the end of this, that we can look back and say, okay, we thought about that and analyzed every one of these. And so that there isn't a question about our recommendation at the end about what we did or didn't do.
Agreed.
So this might be painfully laborious, but I think we should do it anyway.
Tom, I think that's very important, because what has been happening when we go through this is people keep repeating things over and over and over and over again. And so it's frustrated a lot of people. I know it's frustrated a little bit at the school board when they keep hearing it over and over. So you lay it all out, there's the facts.
Right. So what I was recommended by email today, I know it was late in the day and some of you were probably driving here when you got it, but I'd like to just spend some time tonight going through 3 steps. Define the problem or articulate the issue. And I've written some things that I'll read into the record now, but you can't solve the problem and stay focused unless you say what it is. So we'll do that together. I'll say what I think it is and everybody else chime in and we'll record this and type it all up later. Second thing is to draft and then preliminarily rank the criteria by which we will judge the alternatives. In that order. Let's not go to the alternatives first. Let's say, because I think this is the thing that's going to be most helpful for us to do, because we don't have land, we don't have money, we don't have anything but influence. So let's have our influence be focused on these are the things that are most important to us. And again, I've got some points to make to just prime the pump, but let me read them into the record and you guys join in. And then let's rank them together. So that we, there are a long list of things, but some aren't important as others, and we should just acknowledge that. And not people who work with me think that I try to reduce everything I do to a spreadsheet, and it's probably true, and not everything in the world is a spreadsheet, but I think this is one of those things.
A better world if it is.
Thank you. I mean, we can get to the point where we can weight these criteria against the alternatives and actually. Again, not everything's a math problem, but this might work well that way. And then third is let's go through the alternatives that we've already heard about or talked about, make a list, talk them through, pros and cons, and if we have time, start the brainstorming of more ideas. Because there isn't a clear winner yet. We need to turn on the creative brain power of this group. So let me start, and this isn't by any means to be dictating, what this group thinks. I just want to get these things out to get all of your juices flowing and start priming the pump a little bit. So here's what I would say the problem is. 3 points. Number 1, the donation, development, and operating agreement between the Celebration Company and the Osceola County School Board expires on June 30th, 2016. All of the protections for the Celebration School and the Celebration community regarding busing, the 80-20 rule, portables, all the things that we've been talking about expire when that agreement expires. That's an issue. Number 2, the proposed sale of the Island Village parcel by the Celebration Company for residential development will create both a school capacity issue for the county and a partial funding opportunity for additional student stations. Number 3, there is overwhelming opposition by Celebration residents to the proposal to expand the Celebration School, this K-8 campus, by 750 to 1,000 student stations because of safety, traffic, and quality of education considerations. That's the problem when you boil it all down as I see it. Is there any more to be said on that? And we don't have to. This isn't the last time we're going to talk about this, but I'd like to keep defining this and refining it until it's just solid.
Just a point of clarification for you, Todd. Thought I heard you say earlier tonight that TCC had actually asked the Board of Education to consider the full expansion of Celebration, not just the impact of Island Village. Is that what I heard? So that's a consideration here as well, that we're not just planning for Island Village, but the ultimate development of another 1,000 lots at some date, sometime in the future.
Which is reflected in the plan that you've seen.
The one thing that's not mentioned, and it may be because you're trying to express it from a Celebration perspective, is that there is significant overcrowding in schools in communities adjacent to the community we live in. And that is obviously a key factor for the school board right now.
Okay. How do we say that? Or just for now? Overcrowding?
Regional overcrowding?
Yeah. I think we talked about that.
The whole county?
Yeah.
It's not just here, it's the whole county.
Okay. So during the week before our next meeting, maybe we can be more articulate about that point, but sure, we'll throw that in. Now, what I didn't say, and I want to take this opportunity to just talk amongst us as friends and neighbors. A losing argument is to ever say out loud, even if you're thinking it, I hope you're not, but even if you're thinking it, do not ever say in public to a school board member or anybody else anything about that might be considered to be snobbery about celebration, about their kids versus our kids, about your property value. Those arguments will go nowhere, in fact, will work against us with the school board. So,
and to that point, because one of the things the school board continues to discuss is they're concerned about the children in the district.
yeah.
And, so when it gets to be celebration focused only, a lot of them, I mean, every communication I've seen, when I've talked to them, they just stop listening. It becomes a big negative. And the other thing I think might be wise to add is a lot of things that the school board already mentioned that were either non-starters or they weren't really willing to consider. So when we talk about possibility of moving, and no matter what agreements say or whatever, because that was done with another school board, when we say, okay, we want maybe 8th graders at the high school and stuff, they already made the statement that they weren't willing to go ahead and consider it. So should we even bother? I mean, there were certain things that they already discussed. I'm like, I don't see why we should be discussing it because they already said that's not what we're interested
Say again what they wouldn't consider.
So one of the things they didn't want to consider, they wanted to keep the K-8 high school model the way it is. They weren't considering putting middle school or a partial middle school over the high school. That was stated, I'm not sure if it was the workshop or the meeting, but they were very clear about that.
Well, my caution to everybody just is let's not set ourselves up to be rejected out of hand.
Right.
With something that sounds like elitism, which we know is a losing
agree.
argument, but something that can be overcome with a rational argument or evidence or studies or something else. Now, I'm not promoting the middle school
Right.
thing as the solution, but I think it should be on our list because there might be, it might be the winner in the end. And if we have to convince them, there are 4 or 5 other middle schools in their county, so I mean, it's not unprecedented.
And one on the drawing board potentially for the new high school too, because it showed it on the campus. So it couldn't have been a non-starter in every way if they're considering it for future development.
So I don't know.
Did you want to introduce her?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Miss Sophia Graves.
Hi.
You are the student body president?
Yeah, at Celebration High School. And I went to the middle school in K-8. I came to Celebration when I was in 4th grade, and I've been involved in the youth soccer, and I was a referee, and yep, I've just been around, so.
So welcome to the team.
Thank you.
We are mid-stride here, so just jump right in.
Yeah.
So I don't think we have time, and I'm not, my penmanship is terrible, but if imagine that these 4 points are now up on the whiteboard here. The donation agreement's about to expire. This Island Village thing is a catalyst. It creates more students, creates an impact fee, so it's both an issue and an opportunity. I'm not speaking for everybody, but it's very plain that the expansion that's proposed for this campus here is a train wreck. We've got to come up with alternatives that are better than that. And as Rebecca just said, the county has a problem with regional overcrowding. That's the problem. So our mission is to come up with alternatives, fully vet them, propose a better idea to overcome the one that they have. Okay? So what are the criteria by which we are going to judge those other alternatives? And again, priming the pump here, I've got 5 points to make. Number one, I've got one that's out of bounds right out of the gate here, but let me say it anyway. So We need to extend the donation, development, and operating agreement with the county, with the Osceola County School District to protect celebration and celebration-based students and the celebration community into the future, regardless of the sale or development of Island Village. That's something that we have to do. Whether that thing goes through or not, we've got to have something after June. So left that with you and Paige and your guys as a challenge. Point number 2, do not significantly expand the celebration school. We'll call this the celebration school and the high school celebration high school. Protect it as a community school. Preserve the parks and play fields on the west side of this campus. Do not allow portables on this campus. Fix the common facility issues already existing at this campus, like the cafeteria space shortage, the drop-off and pickup congestion, ambulance and fire truck access, and those kind of things. Minimize busing within celebration and in and out of celebration. Again, these are criteria. Call them decision-making factors, call them weighting factors, whatever you want to call them. Number 4, minimize the total number of transitions from K all the way through 12 within celebration. And the last one I had was do not split the celebration community into zones with the same public school grades at different locations within celebration. It doesn't mean we couldn't have a charter school or a parochial school offering the same grades, but in terms of public school options, don't put another K-12 or another K-8 just in a different part of celebration.
Can I ask you a question, Tom, on your minimized transitions?
Yep.
Is it possible you can minimize them less? Is that what you're considering?
No, just...
Or maintain?
As I've been thinking about the middle school option, I recognize Rebecca's counsel, it'd be better not to do that, but is the negative of that transition more or less important than some of the other things that we'll consider?
And just as a point of clarification, it's not that I particularly believe that the only way to do this is to just have one transition, that a middle school isn't a viable alternative, but that the research right now seems to suggest that that may be a fruitful offer. But within our community, with the support that we have and the involvement, a middle school somewhere might be a viable option. So I think all of these options are still open.
Yeah, so maybe that one, for example, minimizing the transitions isn't the highest weighted criteria. It should be on the list, but maybe it just gets a lower weight. So these list of criteria, I think, is the most important thing that we'll do as a group. So I know I'm catching you, kind of putting you all on the spot here, but between now and next week, let's add to this list so that next week we can go through a comprehensive list and start to rate them and actually, we might actually want to vote on some of these things. So come prepared next week to add to the list and give some thought to how you rank them.
Tom, is it possible just to, for those that are out there, if there are alternatives, if you're not going to open up to the floor, if you could please at least reach out to the task force or email, or that way, if you do have a criteria that was not listed, they can still be recognized.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
So
you never
rather than open it up after each one of these three,
I'm just
if you
letting
can
you
all
know.
just patiently give me 1 more minute or 2 more minutes. So I scrubbed through all of my notes in the last couple of days to review the alternatives that we've already heard. And let me just throw out what I have, and maybe I didn't get them all, but on the list should be the proposal that's on the table. And that's number 1. That's the current King of the Hill that we got to knock off. But let's judge that against all of our criteria. So the current proposal to expand the celebration school, be number 1. Number 2 is redistribute the grades between the existing Celebration School and Celebration High School. Keep the 80-20 ratio. Use the Island Village impact fee to 1, make necessary improvements to the Celebration facilities, the Celebration School facilities, and 2, to assist the county with their capacity issues outside of Celebration. Just respread things according to the numbers that you went through. 3, build a new Celebration Middle School on vacant land someplace in Celebration. 4, build a charter school in Island Village or somewhere else in Celebration. And just FYI, Jay Wheeler is going to come next week promoting that idea. I didn't tell him not to, but I just asked him to please be patient and don't sell too hard until we can analyze everything. But he may not be able to restrain himself. And the fourth, if you don't mind, go ahead.
So I mentioned to Tom that this hasn't been discussed in any more detail than really us chatting about it. But one of the other things that we talked about was potentially even approaching the Catholic Church and seeing if the diocese wanted to consider a Catholic education program here in Celebration, again on vacant land. It would alleviate some of the stresses on the public system. I think it's something that the parishioners would be very interested in potentially, but have not had an opportunity to have a detailed discussion. But it's certainly something we could throw on the potential list.
So I said 4, but I think that's 5. The current proposal to expand here, redistribute the grades amongst the facilities we have, build a new middle school, build a charter school, build a parochial school. Have there been any others?
I have 2 others.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if parochial school solves the county problem, but it's definitely an option as an alternative. So 2 other options that we studied were build a K-8 on Island Village. That meets Osceola County standards, not a charter.
Yep.
And then build a K-5.
And those would both be in your case supplements. Additional, they would be operated in.
Yes.
In tangible D case.
Well.
And Todd, what was the land allocation that was discussed for those? Because I think that was the issue I heard before.
It still is. The K-8, to meet Osceola County standards, we were told somewhere between 15 and 30 acres. I think it's closer to 15 than 30. But 15. And then the K-5, they were asking for 15 acres, just for elementary.
So 15 to 30?
15 to 30 for
15.
the K-8.
The high school is, it's 30 acres. 30.
High school, the number they told us, they needed 30 acres.
I'm saying the present high school.
The present, yes.
Is 30.
Right. So the other option, and I've been talking about this for a while, is to look at expansion outside of Celebration, to see whether Reedy Creek or West Side is a possibility to expand, or other schools in that area. I have my biggest concerns about K-5s or K-8s or charter schools in Celebration is, you're adding busing, you're adding traffic, you start splitting the community. There's no guarantee for the county to actually have the numbers they need. And so one of the focuses they kept saying was they have a capacity issue. Moving kids around here doesn't answer to their capacity at the high school or whatever, because they have to move the kids somewhere. Addressing those needs at other schools will provide that capacity, and then allow them to go ahead and say, okay, well, if we have the capacity there, because it seems to be that is their big thing, and that it considers Osceola County, not just Celebration. We're not just building new in Celebration, building new at those other schools. That agreement could be signed here and be enforced, because now they have additional capacity in those other schools. I don't know if, I know you were looking at different areas. I don't know where that is, but
I think that has to be part of the redistribution. It doesn't work without solving the county's problem.
Right.
There's not enough room at the high school to expand to build a middle school there. So there would have to be a redistribution, and then as children mature beyond now, they would have to provide capacity elsewhere. And we explored that with the school district, and they said, there's no room to expand in those other neighborhood schools, so that's part of the due diligence that Henry and I are looking at. Is there land adjacent to those schools that could be acquired, probably cheaper than Celebration, for the school expansion?
Because there's also a long-term financial impact in the busing costs. What they're considering now, bringing children in and out, and that's substantial.
And see, that focuses again on the child.
Right.
Because as opposed to moving them back and forth and not being able to do any, the after-school activities, they would be in that community and not sitting on a bus. So.
Okay, so you want to talk about the criteria, or you just kind of want to start talking through the alternatives, which might prompt back to the criteria? Tell you what.
Let me suggest we just open up to the floor if anyone has comments now before we jump
Yes.
into that.
Thank you for the reminder. So, everybody with us so far? Anybody want to come up and say anything?
I need to ask you a couple of questions.
Thank you. My name's Michael Capilli, 116 Clayton Avenue. I'm confused with all these numbers of students. Science and medicine was my background, not math. But when I'm doing math, I'm still wondering where the hell are they going to put these other students at Celebration High School if we start filling it up?
There's no,
They can't.
there's no room.
I was going to say also, I was not able to make all the numbers work either in terms of existing students, additional seats. So I think, I know for me, I need to have Excel in front of me also to work Excel. I can't do the math on paper anymore, apparently. I'm too used to helping my kids with new math, so I can't do it the old-fashioned way. But maybe we can have an assignment for someone to produce the task force, an official view of the numbers, and then get them in front of someone at the school district to work them out. I sat there doodling on it for 10 minutes and I couldn't make it happen.
So if you move kids, you have to have a place to move kids out of the high school.
Okay.
And the school board says they do have a place, but they haven't purchased the land and they're not going to be building the building for many years to come. So that's the thing when we talk about we can move people. Well, that's going to be tough to do because there isn't any room to build at the high school. So those kids are moving out. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, I do, but I don't understand where we're going to put Celebration kids.
That's the discussion. That's how they have. That is the dilemma that we have and the school board has.
Okay.
That's the big. That's the big
Michael,
dilemma.
do you mean right away, or?
No, I just mean over time, there's going to be more people. I'm sure that, I don't know how many units we have here in Celebration. I'm sure they're not all full, but they will be. And people have more, we could tell the people of Celebration to stop having kids, but I think that they're going to have more. And Celebration High School is more of a regional school. It's not a local school.
Right.
And that I'm hearing numbers 700, 400, 20%, 30%. That means that about 2,000 kids are taking up space already. Where are they going to go with Island Village and this other development?
Yeah, so I agree with Dan. Let's try and clarify the numbers. Anybody want to volunteer? Hold on.
We want to work together to put together
Please.
a matrix of numbers.
Okay.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah, thank you.
Go one page.
Yeah. No, 16 pages. Yeah. let's-
No extra sheets on Excel.
One
So
quick, concise.
we'll try and make it clear for all of us. But Michael, there's one other thing that is, it's not naive, but it's maybe real high level, is that Island Village, even if it started today, wouldn't be done for 10 years.
Okay.
So by the time all of those kids get to be school age, we're matriculating out, people are graduating out of the high school.
Okay.
So there's in and out, and today there isn't a problem. So we will clarify the numbers, but this thing isn't going to fall apart tomorrow.
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Right now at the high school, we have portables, and we've had them for 2 years now, and they're still overcrowding in the classrooms. So are those going to go away, or are those staying?
That would be a county commission.
They weren't supposed to be there.
Yeah, because I heard, they weren't supposed to be there, or a 1-year max, but
Yeah.
now they're still there.
They have a tendency to become permanent. We don't like that, so we're trying to do something about it.
I can answer that about the portables at the high school. That's basically, Leah Carius, 1049 Nash Drive. That's a classroom size capacity issue. So they have to have, their max at your core classes, 25 students at maximum. So that's the reason for the portables, is to give more classroom space, which I believe the legislature is going to bring up in this January to basically circumvent our voting on that. So that could change. But the other thing about the numbers being, the school district is building another high school. It's on the other side of the county, but it'll be built within the next couple of years. Yeah, they say 17, and so that should ease all of the high schools. Although the numbers I saw from the school district, they were only talking about the 5 nearest schools. They didn't list Celebration High School numbers or Liberty High School numbers as part of their redistricting, because those are the furthest away from the new proposed school. But so it's my understanding those are there because of class size. That's the reason. So I would say they're probably not, unless they build more buildings, there's nothing, they're not going to go away.
John?
Just some information as you go and look at some things. I was looking on the Osceola County School District site. They just published the October 1 FTE student enrollment, and it gives what the funding will be for each school, what the enrollment is for each school, both elementary, middle, combo schools, and high schools. And as I looked at, there was Celebration is pretty bursting at the seams, as is Osceola County High School. The other high schools, they're flush. And when we built Celebration High School, the district redistricted, drew new boundary lines through Intercession City and Commerce City to have those students bust into us. Since I have the floor, just a brief comment about, Tom, earlier you were talking about avoiding the sense of being elitist. That was a big issue when we built Celebration High School. It was a non-issue. The whole city of Orlando was waiting, and it never happened. The school board president came out one day and he says, well, how are the kids from Point Siena doing? And I took him out into the courtyard and I said, okay, which one are from Point Siena and which one are from Celebration?
Exactly.
Kids are kids.
Kids are kids, that's certain.
Same thing happened when the kids moved from 192 were brought in.
Absolutely.
Same thing. They're welcome.
Good.
Okay, so math exercise, Vanessa, thank you.
We will work on
So
that.
we'll make it semi-idiot proof for me.
I just wanted to add something. Laura Desjans at 1021 Banks Street. So I attended the district meetings last time, the workshop and the board of directors meeting. And after the 2 meetings, I went up to speak to every single representative. And the 4 that I spoke to that were not Jay Wheeler, meaning Tim, Clarence, Kelvin, and Ricky, I told them, well, how about TCC gives you the money to go build elsewhere, at the other schools, so kids don't have to be bused in. And all of them said, yeah, definitely, let's do it, just give us the money, the check will do it. And then the only one that didn't like the idea was Jay Wheeler. And he basically told me, he shut me out. And then I asked him, why don't you want to talk about it? And he said, well, you work on that option and I work on my option. And I said, well, what option are you working on, the K-8 expansion or the charter school? And he said, the charter school. But that's just something he made up the night before, right? So I'm thinking that maybe he has different interests that maybe are personal interests that aren't aligned with the community or the school board. Yeah. I just think it's something that we need to think about.
Well, and I think and I think Tom addressed this earlier, is if we're methodical about our processes and we go ahead and have an unbiased view and look at pros and cons of all the different options, and we present it to the 5 members of the school board, they collectively will go ahead and vote. There'll be people for, there'll be people against, and there will be a decision based on that. And I think that's probably the best way to be as professional as possible when you approach it. everyone's going to have their personal views, and that's fine, but I
Right.
think we need to dwindle them down to those options.
Yeah, thank you, Tom, and thank you. Jay will be here next week to defend himself.
Yeah, I
so-
should need to dig a little further. That's what I'm trying to
But
say.
I'll give you an insight that I've picked up through, talking to a whole bunch of people over the last week or so, is I think what might have happened here, and not making excuses for anything that has happened, but people hear what they want to hear. And, somebody said, well, and it's why I'm being so firm on this list of criteria in the ranking, because somebody said, well, we heard you wanted another gym, or we heard you wanted a parking garage, or we heard you wanted a community center, so that's why we've been promoting this. That's what you want. I said, what do you mean that's what we want? So, I think we need to be clear in our recommendation of what it is we want and what we don't want, so that these red herrings aren't all, floating out there that support somebody's individual idea. Leonard, please, come on up.
Leonard Tim, 411 Campus Street. I've actually got a question for Todd that he may or may not be able to answer in this forum. The question is, the $12.3 million in prepaid impact fees that's been thrown around, I assume that's for the 1,300 houses down there? So if you have another 900 houses past there, you would have another 9 million, 10 million? So you'd have a total of 20. I'm sorry, I lost my. I'm trying to add. I can only go 10.
A lot more money. I'm going with a lot more money.
There's some more money.
So you have about 22 million, 23 million possibility for impact fees, even though you may say, we would promise you this in year 2 from now, and we would promise you another 10 million in year 4 from now or something. I don't know what your development process is, but you're trying to get, you've got 12.3 million on the table, but you've got another 10 million of possible impact fees that's kind of stuck in your back pocket right now, that if brought out onto the table, might induce the whole 8,100 and whatever number you have for the DRI build out, and make that more palatable, because the county gets money up front. You get student stations faster. You could possibly, if you're talking 22 million, that's about 1,000 student station high school. The new Liberty High School is running somewhere close to 24,000 a student station. Now, I don't know exactly what they've done out there. I don't know the land costs or anything else. But I'm just listening to the numbers and not talking to facilities in any length of time about that. And that's a 3,000 student station one. So if you scale that down to 1,000 student stations, it might be a new high school that could be started somewhere near here, have room on it to expand another 2,000 stations as the county got the money, and take 1,000 out of this high school, get an 80-20 agreement, and lock down the zone, all in a single swoop.
I don't know if there was a question there, Leonard, but I was following you, and
I mean, and I'll just say, I mean, I don't think we're willing to commit the prepayment of impact fees for the additional units because of the build time. So with Island Village taking 10 years to build, most developers there's a significant cost of money in fronting that. So, versus paying it over time. And so, advancing money 20 years in the future is tough. And I'm saying 20 years.
I realize that, but the KD8 was actually built larger than it needed to be in advance of all these houses coming that didn't quite get it to capacity even as of right now. And any things we're talking about right here that considers that next group, maybe should consider the dollars for that next group coming in a it would be more advantageous to the property owners. I'll just leave it at that.
I understand.
Point taken. Leonard?
I was just going to add to that because, back to the point I asked you to clarify earlier, Todd, if we've asked the board to fully consider the impact of a full celebration build-out, that we're kind of having it both ways, right? So to that point, if we're not fronting the money for that, because it's arguably 20 years out, but we're also asked to front the facilities, it's kind of a bit of a double edge.
But think about it this way. So we have a contractual agreement with the school district that expansion beyond where the schools are today, which Celebration helped to fund, is at the school district's responsibility, subject to us paying. So in order to help facilitate a solution, we don't have to do anything other than pay our impact.
Right.
In order to help facilitate what we thought was a good solution for the community and for the region, we have obligated the developer of Island Village and ourselves to front funds at a cost to the school district for expansion for now. I understand that more could always be given, and it's something we need to talk about. Right now, we feel like we're doing above and beyond what the minimum is, and we always want to do better. It's got to make sense financially.
So you'll forgive us if we give you some ideas to ponder.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay, so how about we just roll quickly through the 8 alternatives that we've talked about. So number 1 is the proposal on the table, which, just for convenience, I know the camera isn't pointed that way, but that's the plan that has been on the social media. I don't know who the author of it is. I don't know much about it other than that's what we've all been reacting to.
So it is the school district's plan. We put the nice color on.
I had one question about it, which is it substantially filling in a piece of wetland there in the middle?
It is.
Is that going to be possible and doable? Has that been checked out with the engineers?
That's what we're taking on that obligation.
Okay, so we haven't actually checked whether this plan could work with...
This is, remember what the school district said, this is a concept.
There's a concept plan, okay.
And there's a lot of due diligence needs to go, but we feel that it is feasible, assuming the permits can be.
And reclaiming wetlands is a viable option usually. You just have to find other wetlands to replace them. So we do that all the time in construction.
All right.
And for the most part, there's no buildings on existing wetlands.
So can we give Ms. McDonald a moment?
Yes.
I just had a question, text from a resident, which I think I know the answer to, but I wanted to direct to Todd. What would happen if you did not require the builder to front the $12.3 million in impact fees? And I just wanted to thank all of you for participating.
The school district would have to find some other way of providing expansion, and they could even propose busing. And then we have the ability to stop that.
Until June?
Until June.
Until June.
So again, I think you say you had a contractual obligation.
Which expires in June.
June 16th.
Nothing, so they have to have something before then.
Right. What we were trying to do, what we have been trying to do as part of this negotiation is come up with a plan. So I think you said it early on, the school district has the obligation, and that there's an incentive for them to work with us because we have capital. So we have been trying to use that as the carrot to put in place an extension of the current agreement that continues to protect the celebration of kids from leaving us. That is and to be honest, the drafts. So we had a draft memorandum of understanding that addressed that plan and the agreement to front the money, and it included a continuation of the protection. So they were amenable to that.
They really lost the celebration students out as opposed to stopping a bunch of new people.
They are saying they will.
So that would be
They just did it at Bella Lago.
And that is what we understand this chart.
And Flora Ridge too, right?
So instead of stopping busing kids in, they would bus us out.
Correct.
It's when, the way it works is when, it's when the students are coming in and out of the school. And so at that moment in time, when you go register your child and there is no more room, they're busing you out. And now that they bust you out, that, whatever other school it is, that's going to be your school of choice. You're never coming back. And so, and that's how it works. It doesn't make any sense financially because they're busing kids here and there, but they have to deal with, at that registration time for that school year, the numbers of kids coming in. And that's where everyone gets upset, but they're running an enterprise. And this is how their rules are set up, and it happens a lot of places. So yeah, it's frustrating.
Their options are putting portables. If we don't do the expansion and this doesn't go through, they can put portables on in order to cover the interim until they have the money in order to do whatever they need to with it, or they bus the kids out.
And what happens is once portables come in, as you saw at the high school,
They don't go.
they don't go. They stay. They become, what do they call it? The teaching cottages?
Cabanas.
Cabanas. Oh, I like this. Cabanas. Yeah, office building. Well, that's different.
So we're back to defining the problem again.
Yep.
I'm sorry, the criteria, you said there were seven, you had seven. They kind of
No one can hear you at home.
The criteria, and I know that you asked the others to come and bring more, and you were going to get more, but you went over those rather quickly, and I didn't get what our criteria that we're working from now to consider these options are.
So I did go through them quickly. I just wanted to read them into the record and get them on TV. I sent the task force members my input on this. I mean, a couple hours before the meeting, so I didn't expect you all to be able to absorb that and add to them. But between now and next meeting, let's get input from everybody on the task force, and then let's spend next meeting ranking them.
Right.
So next meeting, we're really going to set the criteria.
Yeah. And now I think probably the best use of our time here is just to roll through these alternatives again so that we can think about how we will rank them and start to get our own thoughts together, because next week we'll have Jay with us. Sophia will be here the whole meeting. John hopefully will, not next time, but the time after. So I think we'll get some traction a little bit tonight and a lot more next week.
I think, Tom, one of the things you said in terms of the alternatives and listing them is how we go ahead and define it. We need to define exactly what that alternative is. The pros, and we have to define maybe certain aspects of those pros that the board is looking at, and the cons that would either impact it one way or another.
Yeah.
So that's probably, maybe some sort of criteria like that, and we can always define it later on because we'll probably have to review it.
Yeah.
But that's probably.
Yeah, so it's the criteria by which we'll judge each one, but pros and cons, absolutely. So I don't mean to be all your teacher here, but come next time prepared with as much thoughts on each as you can. But let's tonight kind of just review quickly so that we're all ready to do our homework assignment. So on this plan, and again, I apologize to people watching at home, I'll save the editorial, but this is basically, on the east side of the campus, if you can follow the cursor here, is a little bit of a parking improvement behind most of the buildings here. Anybody know what this colored thing is here? Is that a building?
Cafeteria, I think, isn't it?
This is the middle school.
I don't want to.
Cafeteria and the library are connected.
Okay, so there looks like there's a small building in the back, but it's mostly just improving the drop-off, a little bit more parking in the back.
Is that the band room area?
Pardon?
Is the band room and the teacher parking?
Right
On the way to the gym?
So it's not, everything is not on the west side. There's something happening on the east side here too. Now on the west side, get you oriented. The cursor right now is on top of the 851 buildings. I keep calling it the Teaching Academy. There's a new road proposed between, literally just outside our windows here, between us and the wetland, actually in the wetland. And if you can look in the background of this image and follow that's the wetland line, that's the wetland buffer line. And as it moves its way through here, so everything that's colored in on this side of that line is in wetlands. Now, as somebody said, Brian said, wetlands can be permitted, they're permitted all the time. We'll come back to what Leonard said earlier, though, as a suggestion to Todd, is that's not cheap. So doing this is costing Celebration Company and Disney some money. Not only money, they're using their allocation of wetland permitting that has been in the news lately. I mean, you guys went ahead and did another Walker Ranch-like deal, which is terrific. It created some kind of pre-permitted wetland impacts, but do they want to use them all to do this? And I'd like to show them all some alternatives to save those, save the money and save those wetland impacts and do other things. Can't tell them what to do, but we'll make that suggestion. Also on the west side of the campus is a new middle school building. The existing soccer field that's ghosted in behind here is sort of slid out toward the west. This looks like a big courtyard, not parking. Parking lots in place. Tennis courts are still there. Yeah, it looks like there's underneath this new gym is the baseball field that's there in the background. That it looks like that ball field gets shifted over to here. That's the
So
plan.
you lose the front soccer field.
Soccer field is here.
The tennis courts are?
It's here. I remember when I was on that task force for the, all the parks.
I was on the task force with about all the parks when we were working with the Jeffrey, the architect, and we suggested those two ball fields there on the front, and we were told there's not enough space for those, for two ball fields.
It doesn't look like they're the size of the existing field, but what kind of field? Little league field?
Yeah, so I mean, it would make them, I mean, because this one is, I think, the bigger of the two. That one isn't even that big, but it would, so they wouldn't even be like regulation ball fields. And then plus you lose all the space where the little kids play, right? The little
So
kids play
anyway,
soccer.
not to belabor it now.
So middle school would not be able to play on that then?
That's only
in their-
outside their fence.
Tom, along the point, there's multiple different regulation sizes for Little League. It just depends on what age level you're talking about.
But the middle school doesn't play on that
Yeah.
field because it's outside their fence.
So I think we could all go on and on about the deficiencies of this plan. I don't think it's be terribly productive, so instead of getting ourselves all worked up, and me included, let's just prepare to kind of write down pros and cons about this plan for next week. Because we literally have to, there are people at this school district staff who authored this plan, who have a pride of authorship, who are entrenched in their positions. Just telling them, no, we don't like this, isn't going to work. We need to show them something better. So just listing out everything we hate about this isn't a real productive use of time.
Does anyone know what was it 2 stories? Is the new middle school building supposed to be 2 stories?
It would have to be.
I think it is, yeah.
And do we have any detail on what that construction entails? Like, how many gyms, cafeteria space? Like, we know seats, but I don't know if I really understand the rest.
I don't, but I didn't say earlier, but in my conversation with Clarence Thacker today, I asked his permission to talk to the school district staff. And I don't think I needed to do that, but I think he liked that I did. He gave me that permission. He gave me the right names, the right contact information, the same people that you recommended, Mike. So I will contact them, I'll go see them, and I'll get some of that detail. And maybe I'll take whoever wants to go with me.
I think it would be really useful to get a sense of exactly what facilities a middle school generally has.
Okay.
And then make a comparison of how much is being compromised for our middle school students in this plan in terms of facilities and opportunity.
I'll try and get that detail. Okay, just let's move on from that. The second option of redistributing the grades between the existing 2 schools. Part of the answer to that is going to be confirmation of math, because how will that work at build-out? And we've said that we don't have a problem, that it can all work. Let's verify that in black and white. Also, last time, I think it was Pat Schroeder who sort of asked where the other schools were, and I don't think you can see all this very well, but those red school symbols, Celebration School, obviously we know where that is, the high school here, West Side K-8, and for those who aren't familiar with the county boundaries, it's pretty faint here, but cursor's on the northern boundary. The western boundary of the county is just to the west of West Side K-8. They don't have a huge problem over there. There's not a lot of population out there. The problems are to the east, right? Yeah. The south and east?
Right now, the charter at Four Corners is what it's called, actually takes kids from different counties.
Because it's a charter.
It's a charter, and they have an agreement with those counties that the kids
Point Siena High School and Reed Creek Elementary are obviously down in Point Siena, and then there are other county schools just, actually, they're right on the edge of this frame, really from where US 192 goes north and south. Those are the schools on this part of the county. Now, does anybody know, is there a publicly accessible district map or busing map? I couldn't find one.
Busing, I don't know if there's a busing.
There's not busing, but there is for...
You can click on each school on the district website, and it will show you where there's
Okay, that could be helpful.
That's what I'm in the process of creating a whole county-wide map that shows the...
So
one of us was asking
one
for
thing
that.
One thing to keep in mind when we show, you know, you'll see it at home, but west side over here encompasses this area right there, Celebration, and then this area over here is also west side. It's the funkiest thing I've ever seen when you look at that map. So whatever happens, these kids over here are getting bused. It doesn't matter where they're getting bused to. There's nothing that can be done here unless there was another school.
I also know that Point Siena is like the 11th worst traffic congestion in the United States right now, because Valencia is building its own Point Siena campus there, just because it takes an hour and a half at peak times for those kids to get from 10 miles down the road, and that's busing time right now.
There's so few roads in
That's the Parkway.
Yeah. John?
Just a point of information, West Side School, a lot of those kids went to Four Corners. I was the principal there. And Four Corners, or Charter Schools USA, has just built a high school adjacent to Four Corners Charter School that opened this year, which may take a lot of the weight from the west side.
That's interesting.
Do you know what the capacity is for the high school there?
No, ma'am, I don't.
And those students are zoned to those charter schools.
No.
Cannot be.
Our charter school is always a school of choice, but I was told by a previous school board member that Four Corners, they have a lot of existing land. Really what they need is a good road in and out of there, that's the county, they can do it. But that would be a very easy thing to both expand, and even the school district could actually, because they've got school board members that sit on their board.
So the third option I threw out was just build a new Celebration Middle School. And as I think about that, what I think I'm really saying is allow it, put it in a location where it can become a regional school. Where, out on the boulevard, it's not my land to volunteer for this. It's obviously the Celebration Company's land. But I think it's worth thinking about assigning pros and cons to, at least as an option for the Celebration Company to work through the math on, if they don't need to dedicate land in Island Village, it means they can build more houses and get more impact fees, as Leonard was saying. If they don't do the current plan, they can save the money and the cost of the wetland impact. They will have to give up the opportunity cost of selling one of those commercial parcels to somebody else, which isn't cheap, but it's possible that the math could work out. Again, presumptuous on my part to say I know, but it's worth thinking about.
Can I ask you a question?
Sorry.
Is that something, Todd, that you guys had thought about at one point in time, or is that not something you had ever considered?
We had considered it, I mean, either, and not on the boulevard because that's pretty
The opportunity
valuable
cost is too
land. But in Island Village, it's either a K-5 or a middle. The issue that we have there is that it then turns every single school in Celebration into a regional school. So the K then becomes a K-5, and you won't, even at build-out or even through Island Village, we don't fill it up. So there's more busing. And then everybody gets bused around the community, and then you have more transitions too. So that was that seemed like a not as good alternative as the expansion.
I remember a conversation, Vanessa, a few years ago when Rhonda Blake came in and talked to us, where they said that they would never consider the current K-8 school as solely an elementary school because it was too big. Do you remember them saying that?
Yeah, it is. It's too big.
So
1,500 students is just too big for an elementary school. Yeah.
Elementary only goes up to 900 students.
But,
If they did anything, they would want to turn this into a middle.
Right.
And build an elementary school.
right, but why I keep coming back to this, and again, we don't have to solve it now, is the right school in the right location to solve the most amount of problems. Out on the boulevard, there's already a road network. It's not surrounded by existing neighborhoods. And that, there's a big difference between, I don't want to get off the point, but there's a big difference between traffic and safety. They're not the same thing. At this campus, there's a safety issue, there's a life safety issue of trying to get an ambulance or a fire truck in and out of this area when it's terribly congested. Out there, you wouldn't have that same problem. Furthermore, when we're really being honest with ourselves about this whole snobbery thing that we get all the time, what's wrong with a regional school if it's in the right location? We just don't want a regional school when it's buried in one of our residential neighborhoods. So anyway.
I don't know that you speak for the entire community.
No, of course not.
I think there's a sizable resident portion that has a lot of faith and a lot of value in the community school model as opposed to the regional school model. So I don't know how well that would sell to the rest of the town. I don't know how well it sells at this end of the table.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of owners and residents on Celebration Boulevard who would, really want to look at how that would impact their life.
Yeah. And Dan, after the analysis, if that one goes to the bottom of the list, no problem. But what I think what I'm trying to do is really prompt some creative discussions so that we don't just reject any alternative because, well, I mean, sorry, Todd, I'm not being critical here, but you guys thought about it for a little bit and rejected it because you thought, well, we can't, they wouldn't want that. Well, maybe we might when you compare it to all the bad things associated with the other options. So anyway, just unless it's the worst idea everybody's ever heard, let's leave it on the list and analyze.
How big is that?
17.4 acres, I think is what it was. 17.14 acres would probably be available, and then we have the 4.7,
Is that including
What's the last piece?
Just the parcel D is 4 acres, parcel E1 is 8.14, parcel E2 has a lake, probably about 5 acres usable.
Right.
Why would we use the expensive Celebration land and not some random land that's outside of Celebration?
Well, we've got that option. Or we're going to get there. This is just one option. So number 4 is basically Jay Wheeler's idea of or he'll take credit for this idea, build a charter school in Island Village or someplace else in Celebration. We'll let him make that case.
It's not the district that would build the charter school, it would be a charter school operator.
It would be a company.
So in essence, the school district would be recruiting a company to build a charter school?
They've already recruited 18 new charter students.
But in this case, there's not someone coming to them that we know of necessarily to say, let's build a school here. They're going to go try to look.
People have already come to, people have already come here to look for,
The corridor. You think that's something that would just happen? That's something the district could facilitate?
think Charter School USA is leading candidates, and they've got an excellent reputation.
They do. I worked for them for 4 years, and they have a good reputation. They do a presentation to the school board, and then the school board approves it, and they have a finite contract, 3 years, 5 years, depending upon their success. It's been my experience that Charter Schools USA does build the facility, and so...
And homeland or land lease?
It's land that is given to them, and then they build the facility, and they have a footprint that they use across the United States. And so that maybe is something that Jay is thinking about. I would caution people, if you're looking at charter schools, to be very scrupulous in terms of taking a look at their history and their success rate and the type of operation that they do, because there's a lot of charter schools out there that are in it for the money.
So the only, at least my concern on the charter school is that, number one, there's no guarantee that it's going to alleviate the overcrowding in some of the schools. That concerns me. That was brought up at the school board. Again, the number one focus was the student population, because people could opt out of the charter school and then they'd want to go to the K-8 school, and they're right back where they started. My other concern is that, there would have to be some rock solid agreement between the celebration company and the county to make sure that even if they say, okay, we're going to move forward with the charter, they're not going to go ahead and start impacting the celebration schools again, because then we're in a world of hurt, because we will have sold out at that point and we have no leverage. So that's what concerns me on that. It sounds like a great idea. The buildings get built, the land is given. Hey, we got a school, we can throw kids in there. It's the details, and none of the details, just so we know, has been presented at all.
Well, prepare questions for Jay next week. He'll be ready.
And we're working our way through the details on that as well, because it was, as you pointed out, it was presented to us the Friday before the meeting. So, it does sound like an interesting proposition. I think the big concern that we have with it is that it doesn't solve it isn't a guarantee of school capacity. Mm-hmm. And as discussed today, not saying that it would change, but as discussed today, and I think Clyde Wells even said it in the workshop, the option for children whose parents don't want to send them to the charter school would be busing outside of Celebration, not to the K-8 content. And so that is a kind of non-starter for the community. So, and then there's a lot of details to it. Don't really know how much land they would need. Initially it was 10 acres. There's been discussion of up to 30 acres. Don't know that they need that much. Talk about building a K-8 with the gym and with ball fields and so everything. So long way to go.
So one of the things that you need to be aware of, and I think it's been mentioned, charter school comes in here, they're going to be battling for celebration students. They're going to be recruiting celebration students. They're not going to sit there and wait until new housing develops, and then, so there's going to be competition.
And then that could potentially open up the K-8 to have excess capacity, which is filled with from regional.
And the way that Jay proposed it to us is that Island Village would have first choice. The celebration would have the next, and then it would be opened up. And I think one thing that the school district and Jay in particular is relying on is the fact that this community is so involved in schools, and so you are going to work hard to make sure that charter school is successful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, theoretically, so because there is a difficult track record with charter schools, not necessarily charter school USA, but a lot of them don't make it. And so I think the potential for a charter school here in Celebration to be successful is much higher.
Well, the problem with the charter schools, though, if you say they're competing to take the Celebration, student population, that's great, but then that requires busing for the Osceola district to bring in buses for the students to fill up these schools.
I don't know that they do a bus.
No, charter school, no. If the Celebration residents go to the charter school, then there's opening of seats here, so then they have to figure out buses. So then the traffic study becomes important because then the buses are back in town, and you have to have drop-off lanes and everything like that, which really don't exist at the K-8.
It's one bus versus 60 cars.
Yeah.
Todd, can you talk a little bit, just as we're thinking through the other options, including things like a middle school in another location, can you talk a little bit about what the economics look like for considering a school on the site in Island Village? You know, even in rough terms, just as we're kind of weighing out alternatives?
When we looked at the K-8 model, and we looked at, we were working with the school district on the financials on that. We were looking at an EFT, education funding mechanism. I want to say that the cost generated with the K was more, it was closer to $30 million for a K-8.
Can you just talk a little bit more about the benefit district? It wasn't around when this was done the first time. And how would that play into, that would be something new, that would be a new alphabet soup for the town?
It's new to us as well. We've done a little bit of research. Osceola has two of them.
Flora Ridge and
Bella Lago. It essentially functions similar to a CDD, where the EFBD can assess, can raise money and assess costs to residents. But the way we understand it is that within their jurisdictional boundaries, in order for that assessment to occur, they have to have 100% referendum vote. Unanimous vote. So going in as a developer in control of an entire community, that's pretty much a no-brainer. To assign an EFBD across all of Celebration, that's not going to work.
Right, it's intended for completely new.
I don't know whether it was intended for that, but that is definitely the virtually only application that it's occurred in that I'm aware of.
And so that would come with its own board of directors that would be elected, similar to a CCD?
As I understand it, yes. But the school district has a lot of, has a seat there as well, because they tend to, so like with the Island Village model, if we did an EFBD on Island Village to fund a K-8, the individual units couldn't sustain the entire assessment to pay for the entire $30 million cost. And so the school district pays for the capacity that they get from that. So if roughly it was a 25% allocation to Island Village and a 75% allocation to the county, they couldn't afford that allocation, and the Island Village developer couldn't afford the 25%. So, or the residents couldn't afford that.
Okay, option 5 is only a couple hours old, this idea of a Catholic or parochial school. Don't assume anything, about what that means until, we can have some more, or Jeff can have some more conversations about that. But let's, again, start thinking about it for next week. Number 6 was build a K-8 in Island Village. Still on the table?
Well, that's what we just got done talking about. It's expensive.
Yeah, okay.
And it potentially, even if it was affordable, it potentially would cause some redistricting within existing Celebration. And that's where the school district actually, at least that was their stated objection to it in addition to the cost, is that it could potentially displace existing Celebration families to the new school to balance. So
You'd be driving right by the current K-8
correct.
in order to get to.
And then there's a huge, there's definitely a surplus of seats that the school district needs. So that was what was attractive to them.
7 was build a K-5 in Island Village. Just takes less acres.
Takes less acres, less cost. It is feasible. The concern there from, I think, both the school district and TCC was that too would have significant impact to the existing K-8 in that it would have to be redistricted, re-engineered to be essentially a middle school with a small K-5 component attached to it. And again, the celebration community would probably be split between those two elementary schools.
What is the state of the need, though? Is the need is high school and the need is middle school, or the need is all grades?
Elementary and middle.
Elementary and middle.
Mostly elementary.
Mostly elementary.
There obviously is some growth in high school, but we have high school capacity. So the constraint.
Countywide.
Countywide, I think countywide, it's across the board.
All grades.
Yeah,
High school, 2 middle, and 1 elementary. They're supposed to be in their 5-year plan, but they don't have, they're only building the 1 high school. They don't have the money for the
They're in dire straits.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the 8th option was Tom Tuzin's, just if I can paraphrase, help the county solve their real problem, which is capacity needs outside of celebration. I don't know how we do that necessarily, but, take the impact fee money and buy a site and build.
I mean, I think it's a combination of what Leonard was saying and the rebalancing between the K-8 and the high school. I mean, to your point, and we raised that as well, that there is in the agreement, and actually it's in the high school agreement as well, the ability to, excuse me, move 8th grade and even potentially 7th grade to the high school. The problem is those students that are being redistricted need to go somewhere, and there's no space for them. And so if we can solve, in order to have that happen in celebration, we have to go solve the outside world. And if that's feasible, then I think the county, to your point, would be more than happy to take our impact fees. It's the cheapest solution, quite honestly, for us as the developer, but it has been a non-starter since we first talked with the school district.
Do you know why?
Varying reasons. I mean, we've heard everything from the developmental issue to the space issue. I'm not, don't know where the truth lies. I think they're looking at this solution is beneficial to them because I'm not. As far as I know, and we're trying to prove it out, they have no room to grow in Westside, and they have no room to grow at Reading Creek.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
When you say the school board, every member of the school board?
No, we did not talk. We did not personally talk to every member of the school board. We talked to staff.
To staff.
Yeah.
Okay.
John, did you want to jump in?
Well, I know that the county has, when we continue to talk about the county building new schools, they have repurposed, reclaimed old businesses, car dealerships, malls, and things like that. Maverick High School, I think, was Kmart on 192 that they use right now. So, there's a myriad of options that doesn't require going out and finding fresh land and throwing up a new building.
So
But you can't tell the district.
So, and one of the reasons why, looking at other sites, if you Google map Reedy Creek, that's a very interesting map. Because if you look at the amount of portables that is on that land, okay, plus the amount of wasted land in between all the portables, you can only imagine how many classrooms would actually fit there on a 2-story building. Keep going in.
Where do you want to look, Tom?
All this area over here.
Might not be current.
That's 2015.
That's one typical block boulevard you're looking at there, and that's where you turn into the school.
Right.
And that first building is actually grass, the underground building, the grass growing on the roof.
This is not recognized as the
Okay.
Was it the high school?
Might be, the high school's north there.
That's the high school there.
There it is.
That's what's in okay.
No problem there.
Yeah. Do the same thing for Westside.
Westside actually has better
roads tax.
Yes.
I just have a question about this
Yeah,
option,
the
though.
CDD owns, from what we saw on the property appraiser site. But
Sorry, that's what I'm looking at. If you look at all these portables here.
This whole section is the single-story portables.
And so is that one, I believe, to the north of there, on the other side of that ring.
of the basketball courts.
Under the first school, these are all portables.
Oh, over here, yeah, these are all portables.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that.
How many?
Yeah, there's a lot of land out there, but that's not where the kids are.
Yeah, let's see.
But if you convert
And then, this is the county line right here.
two-story buildings,
Right, Tom, you've already dedicated taking from east of Celebration and putting them there, so they're very solid there.
It might not be the load center, but it's directionally where the growth is going.
Right.
Yeah.
Very much so.
well, and the school district talked about trying to build on North Point Sienna as well. The Brown family land.
Another question from the audience.
I'm sorry. Cookie, come on up, please.
Cookie Kelly, 691 Front Street. I had, and this is completely just, it was something I was thinking about, that because it is going to be 2016, I believe that at that point, it is not a triggering event to also purchase the school back from the school board.
The expiration of the agreement is a triggering event?
Oh, well, I think there are a number of triggering events.
There's a number of triggering events, but typically expiration of an agreement is
Expiration,
one.
but however, let's pretend that you reconfigured the current campus and took the land that is appropriately ball fields and appropriately for the community, and you bought that back from the school board and gave them money to throw at something else. I mean, there's a large portion of that, I would think, that could be carved away. And as I said, I don't have the diagram, but it's a thought that to actually repurchase some of the land, that because we're saying right now, okay, it's too big for an elementary school, so all right, let's make it smaller. And
Well, Cookie, where I was going to go next was, what haven't we thought of yet? And you kind of beat me to the punch. I wasn't going to necessarily recommend this, but one option is the repurchase.
Yeah.
Just buy it back from them.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a winning solution, but it's
no,
it's
I
for-
don't,
it's
and I
a,
don't
it's a
recommend
possibility.
buying the whole thing. I'm just saying to soften it, to create other options, to give the school board some money to do that.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that idea before. What would be any reason to do that? And why would the school district want to entertain that?
I don't think they would, but there's
want
the
to.
the
I think
contract,
I went through what it
that we've
costs, and it
all
was-
seen now. There are some provisions in the contract that allow the company to buy the facilities back in case the school board, malfeasance. I mean, there's a list
Yeah,
of
there's
things.
pretty
but
stringent
there's
standards.
some pretty
They have to
dire.
make some mistakes.
Yeah, but if I'm saying if there's some way that it can be, that it becomes a winning thing for them, and the town gets to retain its public ground, which is one of our considerations to begin with. I've looked through for those, the DRI, to find, the amendments, and it seems like they just concur with Osceola County. That's all I can find so far. But, maybe, how many acres is the site, is the celebration?
10 point something.
10 point something? So,
No, it's,
Soccer ball field.
We're guessing.
No, it's easy to find out. but
Yeah,
it would
anyway, it
be-
was just a thought.
30 seconds.
Can I just say one thing about the eighth option, which was building a school where the real problem is that it still wouldn't do anything about the 424 projected kindergarten and middle school students for the build-out of Island Village, we'd still be over where we were, wouldn't we?
Well, I think the issue, that eighth option is really part and parcel of the rebalancing.
Right.
Because the district won't even consider that an option unless they can solve their capacity issue.
Right.
So actually, sorry, Dan, it's very much like our option number 2, is just redistribute the grades.
Right.
Use the money to
So
solve
it's
the
got
problem.
so it's got to be done in tandem
Is
with
to give
that.
them the money to solve the problem elsewhere.
Right.
Carl Fury, 1202 Celebration Avenue, kind of just exactly where you're going with this, kind of that combination of the redistributing the school impact fees to spread it out amongst the outside communities along with the outside expansion. I know the key thing here is money. Clearly, they need money, they don't have it. They need land, possibly they have land that can be appropriated. I know nobody's going to like this, but the idea here is an assessment for us as residents. Something is small, and forgive me for saying small, but I know I can't write a check for it right now, but stretched out over a year, $1,000 per household. Again, with the roughly 6,000 homes here, that's an additional $6 million to be handed to the school board in concurrence with, of course, we're not just going to wrap it up in a nice big package and go, here's some money, guys, go have at it. No, we'll have the strings attached to it, including helping to renew the 80-20, helping to secure what we, as the community, hold so dear in our community school, in our community, in the safety, in every other thing you want to throw at this. But again, something as simple as $1,000 per household, that's $84 roughly a month for a year. Few of us don't go out to dinner twice a month. I mean, in my mind, it's a small price to pay to save what we all hold obviously so dear, unfortunately, whether you have children or not. There are all the other implications that we've been thrown out over time, so.
Carl, in the spirit of there's no dumb idea in brainstorming, that it's an idea.
I will tell you, the assessment for the EFBD typically runs $200 a year per home.
$200 a year for a long time.
For 20 years.
Well, then.
So, but you still need 100% referendum. That's, that's extremely affordable. It's a lot more money over 20 years, but it's $200 a home a year.
Florida Ridges was.
Yeah, that's what they try to, they don't want to, that seems to be their goal, is to hold it under at or under that level.
So what else haven't we thought of?
So I think Rebecca was going someplace that I was interested in hearing more about, which was if more capacity is found outside of Celebration, we still have a small capacity issue with, another 400 students. And so instead of rebalancing, which we think there could be some resistance to, is finding over the next 10 years 400 new student stations at the K-8. There's 2 buildings that are single story. They completed a minor, I would call it a minor renovation over this last summer. I mean, it was a big renovation, it added a lot of seats, but it wasn't very disruptive. They went from the last day of school to the 2 days before school, and they hustled it out, and they opened up 8 new classrooms or 10 new classrooms. But that is on par of what we need over 10 years that Island Village comes online. If we solve the crowding issue, if we keep the 80-20 rule, we are really only talking about 400 seats over 10 years, which seems like it's not insurmountable if we wanted to preserve the K-8. And that could go into your funding idea, Carl, if we have 10 years to come up with how to pay for 400 new student stations, that seems doable.
There was an additional part on the middle school for an additional wing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned that last meeting.
I brought that up to Jay because it would make the middle school kind of a U shape, how it is now. It comes out and it circles around. That was brought up, and Jay goes, "Oh no, they did modifications. We already did that. We can't do it." And I'm like, "No, that was always kind of there's land to go ahead and do that." It does lessen the green space there. But that green space is used for nothing for the middle school right now. It is pretty much dead grass.
Yeah.
So you know,
Yeah,
there's
so
going to
I
be
would
trade-offs
like
because
to-
right now they'll cross it and it floods.
Yeah, so we'll have a.
So it's
a number-
essentially a phased approach.
So
Yeah,
number
we-
9 would be
They get the
some
money
kind of a
now and-
special assessment. Number 10 is some kind of partial minor improvements to the campus here, not a major expense.
Not major, not major.
Now, part of this should be a math exercise of
When we need it when.
Yeah, what would be a minor improvement? How many seats and where? And that would
Yeah,
be something.
I wasn't even thinking about expanding the middle school. I was thinking just about, there are still 2 buildings that are only 1 story.
Yeah, but they're not designed to have a second story.
No, but they're designed to be pancaked and rebuilt, like any building.
If you go back to that footprint you had originally of the plan.
Sure.
You can see where there's actually 2 spaces on that campus that you could add that, like including that building right there that was part of this plan, but it could be more part of over here. And then also the pond and the playground, there could be a building that says, this is the kindergarten, and this is the 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade. You could put another building here. That would be, that's swamp, so. I mean,
Those two buildings at the end are only 1 story.
Yeah, this is the only 2-story on the elementary side, and then both of these are 2 stories here, but all of these others are all 1 story. And you have to go through foundation and all that kind of stuff.
You know, there could be
When we first looked at it back in 2010, there is swampland, but there's lots of land here or here by this other wing to just redo that.
But going and doing that expansion, what you're talking about, I mean, that's where you go into play and you say, all right, I want to do some temporaries during construction. We've done a couple schools like that for Orange County. You go and put a bunch of temporaries in, students use that for a year and a half, and we rebuild the whole school.
But you have, whatever you do to this, you're going to have to increase the cafeteria. That's going to have to be part of anything you do to the KA.
We have that in the classrooms right now,
And,
too.
yeah, library and
There's one other part.
Leonard, would you mind?
Okay. Basically, this would be a question either for Rebecca or Mr. Bushy there, if you know, John. What are the grades that have to be on the first floor? I know it's K1, 2. They cannot be on a 2nd story building.
I don't know that information, and I haven't heard it, no.
There is a state law, I believe, that limits certain lower grades.
That might make
first
sense,
floor.
actually.
our
Yeah.
3rd grade is the one that goes upstairs.
So it's probably K2 then.
The
3rd grade that goes upstairs.
And the other thing where those single stories are, they face houses, not townhomes, but houses. That's why it probably was designed that way. That's why the expansion on the other side, it faces Stetson and preserve areas. So that's why if you do a 2-story there, you wouldn't have any visual impact.
And I just want to say, the middle schoolers do go there every morning in that little green space by the middle school and play football and play soccer. They don't have really any recess to speak of.
Right.
And it is a great little moment for them to be able to play. But if there was to be a small amount of building at the school, that's a perfect opportunity for them to actually reassess what facilities the school needs, which is not, in terms of their outdoor equipment, needs a lot of attention.
I think on that front too, I had something in the back of my mind from last time, Todd. If you were to go ahead and give the impact fees to the district and they did something, would you then put more houses on the 10 acres you have set aside for the school?
No, we had not set aside land for school. We'd set aside land for recreation. So what we were saying is if a school went to Island Village, we wouldn't build the recreation. They couldn't build the recreation.
So if we were able to somehow preserve the K-8, help the overcrowding outside the district, that would also open up space which we don't have in town for recreation. I mean, granted, it's going to be 3.5, 4 miles from the K-8, but it's still, we don't have any of it right now.
Tom, could you point out, Todd, could you point out, Tom had up the GIS of the island building.
Yep.
First thing, could you point out the acreage down there that would be part of that?
Sure.
You zoom in. The 10 acres you're talking
It's
about.
essentially, and it's larger than 10 acres, but you see the land right along I-4, right there? That would be where, so it would be essentially as you came into Island Village, the plan was to have several ball fields
It goes under the power lines or up against them?
It's outside of the power lines. There could be some, there could be some recreation underneath it, but it was essentially outside of the power lines.
Can you explain how the access, I mean, the whole, I know it goes to the end of the football field and the road is supposed to circle. Can you show that?
So the road ends here today. We would have to build a road and a bridge across Reedy Creek. Down here, it's roughly a mile of road. To get to Iowa Village, and this would be the first village. So the recreation was here. And then that was intended to be the community serving the recreation. Each village, each of these, I think, Henry, there were two separate recreation facilities similar to your community, your neighborhood recreation within the development itself. But it had a large community-based recreation area that would be owned or managed by Crow as part of the development. And I think Crescent, when they were a potential contract purchaser, had already begun conversations with Crow about a program and a development plan for that.
So we've been at this for a little over 2 hours. Good brainstorming, but let's try and get some traction, bring pros and cons.
I meant to bring it
for next time. But before we go, let's look at our calendars. We managed to get 2 meetings, including this one, on the calendar from last week. I think we need to look out more than a month so that we can advise the CDD and the school district. I don't remember saying it, but did we decide on Mondays? Just every Monday night and until we lick this challenge?
The only challenge I think that was pointed out was that Monday, the 15th, whatever, no, the 6th, whatever the
The 14th?
The 14th, thank you. That's the same day that we have our Crow board meeting, and we also have a workshop for the recreation committee that day too. And I don't think there was space.
It's just a regular Crow workshop.
Oh, it's a work.
No recreation.
The Crow meeting was supposed to be the Tuesday, and we moved it to that Monday immediately following the workshop.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. So we have the workshop and our meeting, right? Yeah. And then we have we also have a don't we have a
18.
Oh, the 18th is out. Okay, never mind. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's just start going through what we do now. So are we on for December 7th at 7 o'clock? We're all good?
I am.
I'm sorry, you're saying is it 7 p.m.?
No, we talked about this last time, that on the 7th was at 7.
You guys already have an invite, I believe, from Rachel for the 7th.
Yeah.
At 7 p.m.
Okay.
Did everybody up here get this?
I think
I got the
I
invite.
think there's the same issue with some of the email
No.
addresses.
I didn't get it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, the list that went on, there's a lot of incorrect.
Yeah, we
It was
talked,
already updated.
Rachel and I talked about that. So that handout that went around, did everybody get it?
And Tom Tucson, I believe I got your correct email address, because you got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Fine, but I know you didn't, because yours was returned.
Rachel, could you make a note to get Sophia's and John's and Rose and everybody else we talked about as a liaison?
I gave up my pen, sorry.
December 7th.
Yes, 7 at 7. Okay, how's the 14th?
The 14th is the day that we have double-stacked Crow meetings.
Okay.
So the alternative, if you find another location, or if we identify the library, there won't be any Crow board members that will be able to attend that meeting.
We might be okay one time on our
They
own.
seem so disappointed.
Wait a minute, we might not be able to record that meeting either.
We can't
Well,
record it yet.
I think it would be logistics of trying to identify someone else's equipment to help out those
I
types
mean,
of
we just
things.
need to pick a different night for that one.
It's not insurmountable, it's just tough.
Can you do the 15th?
The 15th is a CDD meeting, right?
Oh, that's right. School board and CDD meeting that night.
16th?
15th.
Is it a good idea to meet before the school board? Yeah.
So,
That's a good question.
do we want to, and Tom, I know I mentioned this to you, the school board meeting, I think is the 15th.
Yep.
Do we want to update, go to the school board meeting and have one or two people kind of provide an update to what we're working on and some of the, our basis or criteria and what we're looking at?
There's a workshop that day, too.
I mean, we can
Sure,
put it on the agenda
we can,
for the workshop.
yeah, either workshop or whatever. I'll be open to that.
I think it'd be helpful just to give them an update. Now, we're not going to be able to report very much.
No, but I want them to probably know that, this is who we are, this is what we're working on, we're involving all these different people. These are the
Todd,
people
are you-
and their staff are working on.
Todd or Henry, what are your thoughts about trying to get something like that going on for the school board that day? Because I know sometimes the workshop it's not very open to having other people come in, but I don't know if perhaps what your thoughts are.
So you don't think it's a good
I don't
idea?
think it's advisable to, until you come to them with your proposals. I mean, you can use them for the information they can provide you, but they're 5 individuals with their own, and they can shut down, if they don't like something, they can shut it down from the get-go. And I think you're showing your hand to them. That's just me.
So is your opinion we should wait till we're have something really polished to bring to them that's really got a lot of support behind it? And maybe has TCC on board?
We are going to involve the school board members.
Yeah.
So they'll know what you're doing.
But if you go there in front of all of them, you're basically telling them where you're leading, and then, if they don't like it, they'll.
I mean, one of the concerns I have about strategy is that we do this work and, they're just not interested in it. And we haven't done any work to make the plan that they kind of really want, that we think they really want, better. And so we're just left with kind of their unpolished plan ready, that they think is ready to go. So, I mean, I kind of thought, my opinion, Leah, was opposite of yours, that it might be nice to get feedback from them in the interim. And we're going to have them here next week, and also maybe to hear what the other members think of what we're working on. But if you think that might be detrimental, I think you're probably Celebration's leading expert on what goes on at the school
I
board.
think having them here and offering their opinions was they'll be more open to do, because they don't have all the ears listening to them. They can state their views freer, Then when you're presenting to them and their venue, then that's a whole different ballgame.
When is Mr. Thacker going to be here?
Well, that's another thing.
That was the 14th.
Yeah, he said that he could be here on the 14th.
Then we should meet on the 14th. I really
So we
think
need a
that's
different
important.
room.
Yeah.
What time is the Trumbull board meeting?
Identify library here. Well, the
What about Harry and John?
workshop starts at 4 o'clock, and then
What about,
the Crow board meeting starts at
how many people do
6:30.
you think are?
What about Harry and John?
Because we've met at,
We could look for
he's met
availability.
at Stetson before.
I think that would be good.
I was going to be quiet tonight, I promised myself.
What exactly is the public hearing on the 15th?
Sorry.
Hey, Mike.
Mike Jackson, 413 Sycamore Street. I think you have to think about negotiating strategy here, and I know you are, but you have to be careful this doesn't become adversarial. And I think, it's lost if you do that. I'm not sure the school board is the right spot to spend your time. They're not the subject matter experts. They're not the ones that put this together. They have opinions, and as Leah or somebody said, it can be very diverse, very unpredictable. I think your administrators are the ones you have to get to. And I think you should meet with them before not in a workshop, but before the workshop, and get to know them a little bit. But I think going to the school board, I think that's down the road.
Okay.
I think that's really,
I think we're all getting there with you, Mike.
yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Tom Phelps.
Yeah. So I'll
That's
do
their
that.
rules.
Go ahead, Laura.
They've got they're changing the rules, and it's a public hearing for that rule.
Sure.
Okay, so we,
Get a lot of data from the staff, the district staff, about the other schools and their projections, because it's a big question mark right now. Before the meeting with Jay, because I know it will not be productive. We don't have this data.
okay, we need a meeting on the 14th.
We'll look and see if we can identify a space. Do you have a time?
What time are the conflicts? You said there's a Crow workshop.
Conflicts from 4 until whenever that meeting is.
It's a workshop at 4, meeting at 6.
Hopefully everybody will want to go to your task force meeting.
There's a SAC and a PTA meeting as well, right?
No, it's just a SAC.
Just a SAC meeting? Okay.
PTA is on the 7th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
PTA meetings.
So we need to do it quickly, because I told Clarence that we would get him a confirmation.
I'll do it first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you, Steve.
Is any of the other halls available? Heritage?
I don't know, I have to look tomorrow morning. Was 6 PM, is that the time frame that you want me to look?
Yes.
Can you try,
No, well-
can we try for 7? That way, if we can get done, at least we can try and get over there.
I'm fine with that.
7 PM?
Is that as reasonable?
That's a good question. Why can we just not shoot for the end of the Crow board meeting?
Well,
we've got guests.
We've got guests coming, so we got to give them a...
Yeah, we need to confirm time.
So that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, so if it goes to 6:30, 7 is good.
December 14th, 7 PM, place TBD. Okay? 21st.
Kids are out of school on the 21st, just FYI, if anybody is, if anybody's going to going out of town.
Do you think the 25th is better? I don't know about that.
I'm just giving you a heads
Oh,
up.
okay, I'm
If you're
sorry.
scheduling it, you may have a problem, you may want to make sure you have a quorum, that's my point.
We got a quorum, 21?
Probably there.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
To make a decision on the 14th.
7 o'clock.
Yes, just don't know where yet. Okay, let's say the 21st.
And Tom,
Y'all
I
like
think we
7
have
o'clock?
you- I think we have you locked in on the 21st.
Here at 6.
Okay.
What time?
We don't have a time yet, but we do have a date.
21st at 7 PM.
Do you want 6 or 7?
Do we want to try the
Do you
28th?
want 6 or 7 on the 21st?
I'm not here.
I don't care. Anybody? 7? Anybody care? 6 or 7 o'clock?
No.
Can we put, we'll put 6 then if
6
nobody
o'clock.
cares.
Okay, so 6 will be the default unless there's a reason like the Crow meeting.
We'll do it at 7 if that's what you prefer, but if you don't have a preference, 6 o'clock works.
6 o'clock.
Hey, look at that.
Do we want to try the 28th?
That one I want to wait.
Okay, 2 out. I'll be here.
I'll be here.
Tom?
You guys,
I'll be here.
okay.
Okay, 28th at 6.
And that's available here.
Okay,
6, right? Yep.
January 4th. That works. 6 PM.
And we have that one here also.
We're going to be running out of steam by here.
All the problems are going to be solved by then.
Yeah.
Nothing's left.
Well,
January 6th, new year, new set of problems.
That would be good. And Tom, just to point this out also, you have on the 4th and the 11th, all 3 of these rooms are open, so if you wanted to do your town hall meeting around that
Oh,
time,
yeah, don't forget about that.
The
all 3 of the rooms are
January
open.
maybe for the town hall?
What about the 11th?
Could be January 4th? Is that too late or too soon?
for the town hall?
I think a week later than that.
The 11th.
When is the school board meeting? In January?
January will go back to the 5th. It'll be to the 5th and the 19th.
There's 2 board meetings?
There always has
There's always
two
two.
board meetings a month.
Yeah, I mean, if we had our town hall before the 15th, and then we could send an emissary for the second meeting, maybe, and maybe it'd be ready by that point. Maybe it's not ready, but maybe it would be in time for the second school board meeting in January.
Do you think it's reasonable to have the town hall on January 4th?
We could say it's tentative and shoot for it, see how the progress is going on the next couple meetings, but lock up the time and say, you know, we're shooting for the town hall on
Because
January
everybody
4th.
should be back, I mean, all the kids are back in school,
that
so
day,
we
so
should be.
it makes a lot of sense.
Let's try it.
I mean, I don't know we can go much, I mean, I don't know we can go much later, because other than that, then we're into February.
Well,
I mean,
Our
you want
drop,
to
I
keep
think,
some,
as far as I'm concerned, I think our drop dead time's going to be January, because that's when the school board's going to, that's
They're going to their traffic studies by
January.
and,
no, they didn't say which meeting. They just said January.
Yeah, they're not going to have them for.
I thought they did say the 19th.
The 19th?
okay, well, let's just say, let's lock in January 4th at 6 o'clock. If we're
the
ready,
town
let's
hall.
have the town hall. If we're not, it's just another meeting.
Should we promote it as a town hall?
We'll send the invite out as town hall meeting, and we just want a week, maybe 2 weeks, or at least probably 2 weeks to really start promoting it to everybody, town hall meeting. Put it in the Friday Flash. And
Okay,
But we're
it's
gonna have to
5
be-
weeks from now. I mean, at some point, we're going to run out of stuff to talk about. And we want to keep our momentum going, so let's have the most productive session we possibly can next week. See how far we get.
14th will be good.
That point on next week, maybe I'm the only one, but Mr. Bushy, could you Can we add a little bit on your opinion on the K-8 split and what makes sense, and, like in terms of middle school, grade 7 versus moving the 8s in with high school? Do you have an opinion on that you can share with us? Just as I'm kind of evaluating this.
I think that if you want to look at studies, you'll probably find one that meets what you're looking for, because they're everywhere. I think the least amount of transition is really critical in a young person's life. Stability in young people's life and familiarity are two key components to a young person in their learning and just their home environment and everything else. Having said that, I'm a strong proponent of the K-8, 9-12 model, and feel that one of the real benefits of Celebration was that the kids had a connection with the high school. The K-8 kids had a connection with the kids who were in the high school and vice versa. And I think that in this particular environment, that would be the way that I would recommend you go, because it works for this community.
Do you think that your recommendation is that it's potential one K-8 as opposed to having two separate K-8s? How does it modify if there's two K-8s in town?
If there are two K-8s in town, they're going to be competitive to a certain extent. I think the more critical thing for me would be the ripple effect that then hits the high school. When you talk about portables, 4 or 6 portables at the elementary school, you're going to have Cabana Island at Celebration High School, because it'll move, the wave will move up. The reality of the situation is that this present school is not going to be able to meet the capacity as it moves forward with the island, whatever. It's not. And so I think that your best option would be another K-8 school.
And you think that would be better than doing an 8-12 at the high school?
An 8-12?
Yeah.
When that was brought up, I was thinking, being the father of 2 daughters, having an 11 or 12 or 13-year-old girl with an 18, 19-year-old guy in the same school. Short of watchdogs and fences, it would be kind of difficult, I would think. I certainly wouldn't want to be the principal.
Okay.
Mr. Bush, when you were here, what was the grade level? Because I know this was a K-12.
When I came here, I was the principal of the K-12 school, with the prospect of being the building principal for the high school. The configuration of the campus was such that the elementary and intermediate grades were at one end, middle school and the high school were at the other end. So the 9-12 or the 8-12 kids were pretty much together, but not interfacing with one another as much as I would think if they were in an 8-12 environment. Once the school, high school was built, then they spread out.
I don't know if anyone was expecting you to say 2 K-8s was the right age. It might be the best solution for town. That's pretty interesting. Thank you, Sharon.
Well, Jim Manti at 1023 Banks Rose. I think you're already headed in this direction, but I think we really have to establish the criteria, very strong criteria, and prioritize that, because we're kind of chasing our tail on some of these options, I think, and we're never going to reach a solution otherwise. And the criteria is what we use to support and defend whatever solution we come up with. I think that's where we need to go direct.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, we out of steam for tonight? So let's just...
Can we just run the dates
Sure.
again real quick?
Yeah, sure.
12/7 at 7 p.m.
Yes.
12/14 at 7 p.m.
Yes.
12/21.
Depending on finding a facility for that.
Yeah, Steve's got to let her know the locations we need. 12/21 at 6 PM.
Yes.
On that night, you're going to make a decision as to whether to hold the town hall meeting on the 4th. So that's the 2-week
Okay.
notice.
All right.
Which is due on 12/21st, 12/28 at 6 PM.
Yes.
1/4
Didn't go past the 4th.
So we're stopping at the 4th, right? For right now?
Wishful thinking.
Okay.
All right. So any more comments from owners? Lee?
I would be hesitant to have duplicate grades in this community. It's just limited right now with just the Montessoris, and they come to the K-8 at middle school. I think if you start having duplicate grades, whether it's a K-5 down there or another K-8, you're splitting the community. It's going to be an us and them kind of thing. And even if it's just our team and their team and rivals in sports, I think that just creates more issues within the community than what you're trying to solve.
Yeah,
That's just my opinion.
I put that on my list of criteria
Yeah.
to minimize or not have that, but
Because
we'll see what kind of weight.
Yeah, because I mean, you're
we
going to
all
have to be
assign to
busing in, and it just, yeah, I think.
Totally agree. Mr. Moore?
By the way, I was streaming it online when I left, so it worked for a little while. I had to make an airport run. Interesting what you say. On my list, because I was streaming in the car going, I wish I could say something, which, by the way, we should think about some feedback online where people can type in stuff for Crow
Not while
meetings.
you're driving, Lee. That's illegal.
It's a very good point.
I caught that one right away.
In terms of my list, I put that on the bottom. You know what I mean? In terms of not, where, like you said, prioritization.
Yeah.
Because I think the worst thing is what the plan that was kind of given, that we unveiled. To me, the plan that maybe have 2 middle schools, it may not be, we'll talk about it and try to come up with a recommendation at some point, but it wouldn't be the worst thing in some ways because, there's, 2 K through 8s. It couldn't be, to me, it's not a horrible plan, but if everything works, it's the plan here to impact and add 1,000 students, let's say, roughly, with the traffic impact is really the worst. There, if you plan for a K through 8 school, you might be able to plan for the traffic going there and everything else. Island Village would be itself in some ways, we've all grown up with rival middle schools and that kind of stuff, even though it's in the same community, in the same city. But anyway, I think for me, if you did create a list, that would be on the bottom. But again, we'll let you guys decide. But I think one thing I did want to say is maybe your next meeting, you might want to do it in a kind of a format where you guys are really discussing and coming up with a thing as opposed, really more of a group setting where we close it off and you guys are facing each other. Because I think you can come up with, like you say, you have to get things done in the next couple weeks, and it might help you to come up with some decisions and move forward and that kind of stuff. So that was just my suggestion.
Yeah.
And we've had task force where the audience were in the background, but the work was taking place at the meeting.
Yeah, we did struggle with the layout. I hate turning anybody's back to the audience, but you're right. We need to, next time, we got to roll up the sleeves and get to work.
Tom.
Michael, do you want to say something? You don't want to stand up? All right.
Tom, one more thing to take into consideration. Whatever your recommendation is going to be is the recommendation from the task force to the Crow board.
Right.
So the 18th is the January Crow board meeting. Doesn't mean the Crow board can't have a special meeting, just needs 48-hour notice. So it's just something to take into consideration as you're finalizing.
Yep. Good point. So, Steve, anything else on your mind?
No.
Vanessa? No? Sophia?
No,
Okay.
not tonight.
Tom? Todd? Yep. John? Okay, we're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Are you going to schedule an appointment with the staff at the school?
Well,
Yeah.
so it's not. Tom is our communications person.
Okay, all right. I'm not sure the assessment is in the direction. Yeah, absolutely. Right. Thank you.
I know Catalyst.
section and email on budgets. I really wanted to sit down and show you what happened, why, where. And I actually went in today because I knew you were going to ask this question. We are about $90,000.
Yeah, that's what we
I just want to say bye. There's an opportunity for us to save within our expense budget and instead of putting that
Yeah,
money
sure.
in.
And there's only 2 schools in the whole of Osceola County which don't have it.
Next step now.
Adds up, the total estimate adds up.